Hello folks, it's me, Kerbanaut here, and welcome back to Let's Actually Play Kerbal Space Program. Today we're going to be landing on the moon with a lander that came along with the Celia station that we have indeed managed to get into orbit around the moon, and you know, we're gonna land, because landing is fun, and I love landing, who doesn't? So yeah, we've got our lander here, we're using all of its well, not really all of its RCS, just most of its RCS. Just spinning it around so it looks nice, and we've got some wee engines on it as well, so fast forwarding down to land on the moon and gain some of its science. So, you know, why are we doing this? Why are we landing on the moon? What are the benefits of landing on the moon? Besides bragging rights, but even then, you know, bragging rights on their own are probably, you know, a good incentive. Anyway, besides bragging rights, what are the incentives? And the incentive is science, plus the view. The view is really cool. You can see Kerbin in the distance there, rising on the lunar horizon. It's pretty awesome, but that's not the reason we're here. The reason we're here is to gain science. Knowledge, if you will. We're here to gain lots of little insights into the way that strange, mysterious goo behaves, because everyone knows that, you know, the important things in life are to do with goo and gooey things and material studies as well. Just studying materials, you know, just leaving the doors open and just kind of seeing what happens. You know, it's not an exact art. It's more of just kind of do it and see what happens. Anyway, yes, the reason why we're here is to gain science points so that we can spend them and do more interesting things. Because right now, landing on the moon, let's be honest, it's not the most interesting thing. It's an achievement, it is, and it's awesome that we can land on the moon repetitively and do it over and over again, and that's good and all, but let's be honest, landing on the moon isn't the pinnacle of, you know, Kerbal civilization. We can go further, we can do better, and, you know, that's why we're here. We're here to gain the science, to gain the knowledge, to further our exploration and further civilization in general. It's strange, I think, that, you know, what we do is we land, we open up some, you know, materials studies, we look at it, we figure out what's going on inside, and then magically that allows us to build a rocket engine. I find that's quite funny, you know. Oh, would you look at that, the plants, they've gone yellow, now we can build a rocket engine, all the knowledge is there, how could I not have seen it before, you know, it's, the logic is very Kerbal, if you will. However, that doesn't stop the Kerbals from somehow mysteriously coming up with this kind of weird system of science that's, you know, spent a lot like money is. Speaking of money, the new update's coming soon, well, soon-ish in the future, as you would expect, and it's going to be bringing some new money updates. Recently, the devs posted a update on the forums saying that they would indeed be adding a money system along with contracts in the new 0.24 update, which is really cool and awesome, and I'm really looking forward to it. What happened was they went into experimentals, and really the folks that were testing it out, they thought, yeah, you know, your contract system's good and all, but there's no point to it, there's no reason, why should we do this, we're not gaining anything, because they hadn't implemented money and, you know, all that kind of thing. So what the devs did, thought, okay, fair enough, we need money, and so they took the thing from 0.25 and just brought it to 0.24, which means we're getting more in this new update, and I'm more than happy to wait an extra month or so for an update that is going to be even more awesome. And it might be more than a month, who knows, but I'm very excited and looking forward to this new 0.24 update. It's going to be awesome. It's going to add so much to career mode, because right now it's just a progression of unlocking parts until we get to the end of the tech tree, at which point it just becomes sandbox. And I think that's something that, you know, that's really going to be worked on and improved in this new update, and it's going to be absolutely awesome. Anyway, talking more about kind of what we're doing in-game here, we've kind of returned back to orbit and rendezvoused with the Celia station after landing and gaining some precious science, and we've moved the science out of the containers and put them into the hitchhiker storage container. Unfortunately though, we are getting low on fuel in the Celia station, and because of that, we need to send up some more fuel. For some reason, my staging was weird and I had to manually eject these. However, it's all good. What ended up happening was I completely forgot to put solar panels on the what I've called it a fuel depot. Completely forgot to put solar panels on it, so we have no torque, which is a shame. However, we are still able to use RCS for some reason, so we use that just to kind of turn ourselves around and, you know, push ourselves away from that ascent stage that brought us into orbit in the first place. And that ascent stage is just going to have to sit in orbit until we find a way to get rid of it somehow. Perhaps we're going to have to grab it with some form of clawing mechanism. I sense a strange kind of vision of the future right there. Indeed, we're going to have to leave that in orbit, along with some other debris that, you know, just happened to float by. I was looking at some of the debris that I have in this save, and, you know, it's terrible. We've got debris just, you know, floating around, and it's doing my head, and we're going to have to send out a mission to clean up that debris at some point in the future. Anyway, we've got the fuel depot into orbit around the moon, but, you know, it's doing nothing for us in orbit. Sorry, in orbit around Kerbin. It's doing nothing for us in orbit around Kerbin. You know, it makes no sense just to have it there. So we have to send something to pick it up. And what we do is we take the tug that's on the Celia station, and we bring it back into Kerbin orbit. And after a quick air break, or 2 or 3, we can rendezvous with the fuel depot and dock with it, because well, we're gonna have to push it back into orbit around the moon. Now this fuel is going to allow us to you know, land a lot more often, kind of really further our kind of exploration of the moon. This fuel is really important because we don't have any mining mods installed on this game. We have to move fuel about from Kerbin and send it out to where it needs to go, because for some reason Kerbals just have this ability to, you know, magically generate fuel, which I kind of envy, because I really wish I could magically generate fuel. That would be awesome. Anyway, they don't have the ability to magically generate fuel on other bodies, which is a bit of a shame, because, yeah, we have to send out fuel to the moon and, you know, to Minimus and all of these places that need fuel. Anyway, these magical abilities cannot be extended to other celestial bodies. What a shame. Anyway, here we are. We've tugged it all the way to the moon, and we're coming into orbit. Now this is sped up. We have it sped up multiple times in post, and also we have 2 times physics warp on as well. I like to do the burns with the kind of nuclear engine and heavy things like this. I like to do it with 2 times warp on. Any higher than that, we start to get structural instabilities in whatever rocket we're using. Any slower than that, so just kind of normal time, it's very, very boring. So yeah, I find 2 times warp is a good speed to go at, while I can go away and, you know, get a cup of tea and drink tea, because I love tea. Let's be honest, who doesn't love tea? Actually, don't answer that, you might not love tea. But anyway, that's off topic. We're gonna get back on topic here. What we've got here is rendezvous again with the Celia station. So we've got into orbit, we've rendezvoused with the station. Now it's time to dock on the fuel module, the fuel depot, onto the Celia station. Now, what happened was, because I designed the fuel depot with a pod at one end and a docking port at the other, and the tug, it has a docking port on one end and the engine at the other, we can't dock directly onto the station. We had to separate them, and then we have to dock on. I've also put some docking ports on the side of the fuel depot. That means that we can dock things onto the side, expand our Celia station when it's not being kind of used in transit, when it's not actually going somewhere. We can build it into certain ways, and it'll be a lot more nice to kind of dock different things on and all of that lovely stuff. Anyway, here we go. We've got another landing. Now, it is very dark, but don't worry. It's just because I'm facing the wrong way. You can see as I just turn the camera view around, we have got a light from the sun, from Kerbal, onto the side of this lander. And of course we do all the lovely science, get some mystery goo containery science, and get some open the bay doors and let the lovely cosmic rays flow in and attack the plants and other strange animals that lurk within, and kind of watch them and see what happens. I kind of feel sorry for all of these strange materials that are in the materials bay that, get exposed to so many weird and wonderful environments. You wonder whether they start to adapt to these environments over time, and whether the science that the Kerbals are getting is in fact legit and completely true after a while, because perhaps they start to adapt. Who knows? Anyway, right now we have gained that science. We've completely finished all of our scientific endeavours with this one specific landing, and so we must return to the skies of the moon and rendezvous once again with the Celia station. Unfortunately, I'm really crap at rendezvousing on the moon. I need to get used to that. It's been a while since I've done one of these long-term missions for the moon, or Minimus, for that matter, and so it does take me a while to rendezvous, but it's not much different than rendezvousing in orbit around Kerbin or any other celestial body. It's just kind of hard to do it straight from takeoff. Anyway, though, we do rendezvous, and we do manage to get in touch with the Celia station and dock onto it so that we can fly about in EVA and wonder and marvel at its rather not very nice beauty. I was going to say beauty, but it's not very beautiful. It's more just like a strange looking tube or something. We are also going to need to put on some solar panels onto this, because although we do have solar panels there, and they do the job, they don't look cool. We need to put some more cool looking solar panels on. Perhaps we'll do that in a later episode, but right now we're stuck with these small solar panels that, are doing a perfectly fine job of transmitting the science that we need to transmit. What we're doing is we're all the science that can be transmitted without losing any science value is being transmitted, and all the science that is not able to be transmitted without losing science value is being kept for later transfer. Anyway, you just saw there I was unlocking some of the things. One of these things was kind of smaller parts, the kind of micro parts. Why was I unlocking those? Well, it's because we need this. This rocket here is a probe. Now, as you can see in the top left-hand corner, we've got Kerbal alarm clock installed. This was actually installed about halfway through the recording of this episode. I realized I did actually need it to kind of manage all my probes and manage everything I was doing. It's actually a very, very useful mod. If you've never heard of it before, Kerbal Alarm Clock does what it says on the tin. It's an alarm clock. You set a time in the future that you want to be reminded of something, and it will then remind you at that time. It's a very simple plugin, but it does the job very, very well, and it's effective at what it does. Anyway, what are we doing with this probe? Where is it going? What is the purpose of having this probe in space at this current time? Well, what is not on the alarm clock, because for some reason I don't know what was happening with it, but for some reason it wasn't there. We have a Juna transfer window, which has just popped up. So we can go with this probe, and we're going to go to Juno. And that's what this probe is designed to do. This probe has 2 mystery containers. One is going to be used in orbit, and the other is going to be used in kind of low orbit or very close to the ground on Juno, and it's going to do a flyby of Juno. Pardon me. So, that's what it's designed to do. It has 2 kind of mediocre solar panels on it, which are going to provide it with power throughout its long and rather boring trip, and that's indeed why we're sending a probe. Anyway, in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to dock these 2 craft together. This is the pusher and the lander. And the reason why we're docking these 2 together is because we need the delta V that nuclear engine is going to give us to go to the specific place we're going to on the moon. And that specific place is the northern crater on the moon, because we need to do a large plane change to get there. Now, the northern crater is, of course, as it sounds, it's at the north of the moon, very, very near the pole, actually. And so we need to do a massive plane change to get there. Unfortunately, that means we're going to need to use a lot of delta V, so we need to use a very efficient engine. If we don't use an efficient engine, what we end up doing is wasting all that fuel that we brought, which would defeat the purpose of bringing all that fuel here if we just wasted it with an inefficient engine. And so we managed to use this nuclear engine to push our lander into the correct trajectory for a landing. And so here we go in for a landing. We have to turn on the engines first because I did deactivate them, and we do a braking burn just to bring ourselves into a collision course with the moon, followed up by, a landing trajectory. And, doing this landing kind of reminds me specifically of something that happened rather recently, actually, especially seeing as we're reusing this lander. What you may have heard that SpaceX recently launched up a satellite to rendezvous with the ISS and provide some supplies. And I believe it's called the Dragon, and it rendezvoused with the ISS, docked successfully, and gave them a whole bunch of supplies that was pretty awesome. And that was amazing because they were I believe they're the first private space thing to go up into space and rendezvous with the ISS. So they are the first private company to do that, and they're pioneering the way in space travel, which is amazing. But one of the other things which I found quite interesting was that one of the launchers that they used to put the Dragon up into space was supposed to be reusable. It was designed to come back down to Earth and deploy its landing legs and do a kind of a braking burn as it got close to the land or water. As it fell down and it got very close, it would do a braking burn, much like some of the pods on the ISS do when they come back. They do a slight, very quick burst of fire just to slow it down so that when they land they don't crash, into the Earth and, destroy themselves. That's kind of the same thing as this lifter. It was going to detach, come back down, do a burst of fire and save itself. And it worked. Although they couldn't completely recover the launcher, the lifter, and kind of take it back and reuse it, it did work. And they recently released a video showing that the landing legs were out and showing that it did fire a braking burn because they had a camera on the lifter, and it landed successfully. Although they couldn't reuse it, which was a shame. Anyway, that's just one of the things that happens in spaceflight. You get things wrong, you get things right, and in this case it was pretty awesome because, it was like a win-lose situation. I don't know. They weren't completely able to reuse the thing, but, it worked, more or less. Anyway, we have returned to orbit, and we are returning to the Celia station. We're docking on with the Celia station just to bring this science back to the station, and transmit what we can, store what we can't. And I kind of sucked at the docking on this one, so I figured I'd just let the magnets do it instead of backing up and, having to do everything again. What we do this time though is instead of putting all the data into the hitchhiker storage container, we take it out of the pod and the materials bay and, you know, all of the stuff like that. And then we travel down to the hitchhiker storage container and we take the science out of the storage container. So now we're carrying a whole bunch of science, and we take it down and we put it into the pod on the fuel depot. Because we have done multiple landings now, refueled multiple times, and this tank is now practically empty. Not fully, not completely, however it is very empty. And so we're going to have to send it back to Kerbin. And why not, while we're doing that, put the science into the pod so that we can bring all that science back when it's going home. And so we decide to do that. I undock the pod, and using the RCS built into the fuel depot, we are able to traverse over to the tug and dock with it so that we can return to Kerbin under the power of the nuclear engine. After a quick warp round to the Kerbin side of the moon, we can do a burn to return. And yes, we'll see the returning in the next episode, but for now, that is all from me. Next episode, we shall be returning to Kerbin, refueling that, and doing a bunch of other interesting things. But in the meantime, that's all from me. I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, folks.